Hi guys, welcome back to this series on game genres. Today it's the turn of the sim genre.
Wowzogie.
Yep, that kind. Some kinds of sim try to faithfully recreate or simulate the experience of something, be that flying a plane, driving a truck, or something else entirely. We call these top-down games, because the concept, like flying a plane, comes first, and everything else is built down from it. Top-down games involve painstaking research into the thing that you're simulating. In the case of a flight simulator, that's everything from the lift given by different wing types, the thrust of different engines, and even how much fuel they consume. The numbers here come down from whatever the theme is. The way a jumbo jet moves through the air is different from the way a big rig moves on the roads. The game system is built down from the initial idea, hence top-down. The other kinds of sim games are bottom-up games. They tend to take number-based systems and build the game up from them. The designers get the system working first and then build the theme around it. For example, a number system to generate power from a solar collector could just as easily be used to generate power from a diesel generator or generate how much iron ore a mine is mining. The system comes first and the rest of the game is built upwards from it. Bottom up. In reality, most sim games are a bit of both, but perhaps the best type of sim to explore this bottom-up design is the farming style of sim. Farming sim games are about resource management and engine building, which are perhaps the two features that digital games have borrowed most from tabletop games. Let me give you an example of engine building using a tabletop game. This is Caverna. In the game, you control a family of dwarves who need to mine the mountain and farm the land in order to earn gold. Whoever has the most gold at the end wins. At the end of most turns, you need to feed your family. In order to do this, you need to ensure that you've planted enough crops that will yield enough food to feed all the dwarves in your family. More dwarves require more food, but more dwarves mean that you can also plant more food. If you can't feed your family, you have to take a begging marker that counts against your gold score at the end of the game. In this respect, a well-tended farm builds up food resources that you need to use in order to help you win. It's easy to see this idea mapped across to a digital game. The more crops you grow, the more food you can sell, the better equipment you can buy to grow more crops. It's a pretty capitalist system if you like that sort of thing. And this is what engine building games are like. You create an engine, a food generating engine like a farm, and then you use the resources it generates in order to play the game, improving the engine as you go. More food means more seeds. You get the idea. This brings us on to another feature of sim and farming games, the recharge clock. Most engines in sim games are on a recharge clock. That means that once you have used a resource, it will slowly recharge over time up to a maximum level. That level is often capped by how much you have upgraded whatever the engine is. The more you upgrade it, the higher the level goes. In some cases, this recharge effect takes place in real time whether you're playing the game or not, meaning that you can dip out for a few hours and then come back and play again. Most free farming sim games have this feature for one simple reason. They let you pay not to have to wait. Those in-app purchases, microtransactions on mobile games, often allow you to buy a literal shed-load of resources for real-world currency, meaning that if you're rich enough, you don't have to wait for your engine to produce more resources. You can just buy them. This practice is known as pay to win, and it's used everywhere in gaming. This is an example of genre hybridity, or the mixing of different genre ideas. Once upon a time, pay to win was mainly in these farming style games. They made a ton of cash doing things this way. Then everyone started adding pay to win features. If we take a look at three sim styles, we can see how some of these ideas pan out. The first is found in the delightfully simple Tracks. This is a sandbox game in that it doesn't really have any goals. You can't win it. The idea is simple. You build a track out of wooden sections, and then you drive a train around it. The fun in the game comes from the relatively free control the player has over their environment. You can build tracks out of any of these pieces, going up or down in levels if necessary. There's nothing to unlock. The challenge comes in getting your train to move between all of the pieces of your track and just designing the most beautiful immersive world possible. Tracks contrasts well with a game like Goat Simulator. They are both open-world, sandbox, go-anywhere games. As such, they allow their players a high degree of freedom in their environment. The differences for a designer can be found in the way they interact with that environment. In Tracks, the player has a high degree of control over their environment. They can build pretty much whatever they can imagine, so long as it uses the preset pieces. Goat Simulator is all about interacting with the environment, usually in the form of running, jumping, and colliding. In terms of games design, the scenery for Goat Simulator needs to have at least one undamaged and damaged version of each model, with scripting similar to a level of detail system swapping out undamaged scenery as the goat causes mayhem. Scenery in Tracks needs to be modular, and the system for deploying it needs to use a grid. Each piece of scenery is a certain number of units wide, long, and tall. They can be rotated and positioned to allow for maximum customization. These two very different systems make for very different sandbox experiences. By contrast, 2 Points Hospital is a resource management and engine building game.
You deserve the best. So join us at 2 Point Hospital. We're open for new staff, new patients, and a new you.
The player needs to build enough nurses and doctors to treat patients, enough equipment to heal them, and enough janitors to keep everything working.
Mechanical degradation is the #1 cause of hospital fires.
The main economy of the game is money, which the player earns by billing the patients who live, and which the player spends on upgrading the staff, rooms, and items that are the hospital's engine. The recharge clock can be sped up, but this also speeds up the rate of incidents within the hospital. The fun comes from the relative freedom to build the hospital in any way you like, the challenge from staying within budget and minimising catastrophes. A good example of hybridity in sim games can be found in Farmville 2. These sorts of farming-style games contain not only all the hallmarks of the engine-building sim genre, but also great examples of monetization through microtransactions and elements from other genres too. The player controls a farm where they can grow crops to sell on the open market. The crops need watering and time to grow, but the player can skip the recharge clock through the use of keys. Keys, of course, eventually run out, but the player can buy more using real-world currency. Advancement through the game is tied to a leveling system that is more familiar to players of the RPG genre. Farming sims aren't the only games to add an RPG-style leveling system.
I've gone on record in the past and I've said that the future of shooters is RPGs. Experience points are a huge thing. When we implemented those into Gears of War 2, suddenly players were playing the game more and it was just a number. It was just a number that it didn't even affect any. I have a feeling you're going to see this feature in every frickin' online game from here on out.
A subgenre of sim game that is growing in popularity is the driving-themed sim. Whether the player is driving a taxi or a tractor, the main system of interface is based more heavily in the driving genre than in traditional engine-building sim systems of play. All this hybridity begs the question, how secure are the traditional genres into which we have organised games? And from the perspective of a designer looking to make a new game, what other style of game genres exist and how are they classified? In the final bonus video of this series, I take a look at some of the new emerging genres and their features, with a focus heavily on how you might design something similar using the Unity game engine. Thanks for watching, y'all.